Hey everyone, welcome back. This one's a shorter little look at a suggestion someone in the community made last upload when I was showcasing my favorite Bolt loadout. Honestly, I find this one pretty funny. It's kind of situational and gimmicky, but we can make it work. It's also a bit similar to the Volt build I showed you in my last video, but this one is just for funsies, so might as well see what's going on. What is the gimmick this time? Decoy helmets. Now, you probably remember seeing this from some Plague Star helmet setups, but this time, instead of using it as an intentional death to TP around, we can use it both as a backup life and an aggro puller. Savior Decoy, an interesting augment that swaps place of you with the decoy once you take lethal damage. Could be pretty useful, but it has a 60-second cooldown once that free life is burned. Honestly, I feel like this is excessively long and we could have went with 30, but that's what we have to work with. The placement of the decoy can be a bit finicky because it dislikes smaller or slanted surfaces and will reposition itself, but we can pair this with Volt's innate kit. As you know, his shield is completely invincible and blocks all frontal attacks, so you can create an aggro puller somewhere on a tile by placing the decoy at an elevation in a safe spot and protecting it with a shield. Shooting enemies can't penetrate the shield and melee units can't reach the decoy. Sometimes the enemies will pat to you instead, but you can carry your own shield and will knock them down if they make contact with it. You'll be mostly free to kill things in the vicinity. While the decoy does have a high aggro threat, it seems to have a limited range, so if you venture too far away from the decoy, enemies will start shooting you. Enemies shooting the shield to get to your decoy will also charge up your passive if you have the transistor shield augment. For some setups like the Cedo Altfire Glaive or another big boomstick, it could be useful, but I'm not slotting it on this build today since we're going the melee route. Basically, we're just going for this free CC and spare life. Our primary weapon, Cedo. This is just a basic generic primer build. It's only here to set up your melee. Primary dexterity to add 7.5 seconds combo duration to our melee of choice. Whether you run your primary or secondary alongside your melee today, both are able to prime, but you can carry your shield if you're using the secondary. The Cedo Altfire naturally procs all 4 basic elements as well as any elements you mod on. It easily maxes out the procs as well in crowd, so we're going to get 7 statuses total on this build, with a beefy amount of viral stacks as well. We got 170% status on the build from all 60 mods. Multi-shot also affects the amount of glaives shot out, so you're bound to get 10 viral stacks this way, and a tiny bit of extra status duration as well. The holster speed X-List makes it easier to pull out if needed, and I don't run projectile flight speed here because I've had mixed results where sometimes the homing screws up and goes into the distance, but that is an option if you want. One interesting thing not everybody may know is that you can make the Cedo Glaive return earlier if you've already primed the enemies you want by just toggling the alt fire again. This makes the glaive return immediately so you can fire it. There's definitely been times where I want to do that, so I'm sure you can make use of it as well. The secondary weapon is Epitaph. Enemies are going to be swarming towards your decoy, so the density is high enough you will want to be using this AoE primer instead of Nucor. It will also be easier since our melee this time has some AoE. This is our Radiation Viral Primer for some extra CC and status duration if the decoy shield wasn't enough. You can safely shoot this from behind your shield you're carrying even without prime sure-footed because, like in the previous video, carrying a Volt shield makes you completely immune to knockdowns from the direction that it's facing. It doesn't say here, but this build also has 170% status chance on the Quickshot AoE. It will produce 4 different statuses on the AoE or 7 on direct hits from the IPS, which is perfect for hitting tankier units. While it isn't as consistent as the Cedo, shots are more available on demand and also easier to shoot something else immediately after. Lethal momentum to make the shots travel faster, and the Arcane is once again secondary dexterity to add another 7.5 seconds to our melee combo duration. Now we got 20 seconds combo on our Tenet Agendus. Normally raw damage setups don't work out as well, but this time it's fine. Tenet Agendus works like a Arcaplasma shot on the heavy swing, every other swing. It also has narrower hitbox than it looks, but this is somewhat mitigated by enemies all pathing towards your decoy, so they'll clump up. Easy bunching up where you can put the enemies between you and the decoy easily to kill. There are a few reasons why we're going for a raw damage build this time instead of some DOT setup. We also won't be relying on light attacks as much, despite Final Harbinger having some good stance with the Agenda's heavy projectile being traditionally clunky. First is Volt's access to speed. This also makes it much easier to not only build your combo, but also fire out the heavy attack projectile in quick succession. Everything feels nicer with speed, but the other thing is speed can be used to reset your animations. You see how Agenda shoots every other swing? Well, if you tap speed after the first heavy, it resets the animation, letting you instantly shoot another heavy projectile. This lets you spam the heavy, but spamming speed this way can get pretty expensive since we're only running 45 efficiency. No other frames can do this unless they have a 0 animation cast ability. Saren is another option, but she doesn't have the ability to sit behind a Volt shield for complete impunity while pounding away at your enemies trying to kill your decoy. The decoy is basically an invincible Saren mult, and you hide behind an invincible shield. Also, you can even carry the shield while using your heavy, shield bashing while carrying a shield. Pretty nice, am I right? So let's call this the Shield Basher Savior Volt loadout. So while Pressure Point and Variance still don't work in the Agendus, Volt's Shock Trooper gives us a massive electric buff and corrosive to make up for it. Condition Overload does work, but only partially, so I'm not deeming it worth using. This frees up an extra slot, which I'm using for Sacrificial Steel, Blood Rush, and Sacrificial Steel alongside Gladiator Might gives this weapon 261 critical chance at 12x combo. We're going to be slapping Arcane Avenger on the build as well, so we'll be above 300% for pure red crits. Focus Energy is our electric mod, and 40% heavy efficiency. Because the Volt has only 45 efficiency, I'm going to be running Zenric anyways, which both gives us Energizing Dash for energy regen, as well as Enter Might to cap out our heavy efficiency to 90%. Getting the combo back to stay on 12x after every heavy is only a few swings away. You will only decay from 220 to 198 each time. You're free to spam this a couple times at enemies approaching your decoy. The slight AoE on the shot should be more than enough to mow down crowds and has an infinite punch through out to 40 meters. Sadly, it no longer has headshot bonus multipliers, but as you can see, there are no problems whatsoever in hitting multi-million reds. You can replace the smite with whatever you want. You could even take primed reach if you want an easier time building up combo on the weapon, say if you lost it. However, it doesn't affect a heavy projectile range itself. If you're using this on another frame without speed buffs and also don't want to use the Bane, you can also try using Quickening for even more attack speed and faster scaling to 220 combo. Regardless of what you do, but especially if you sub out the Prime Smite for Prime Reach, this build has no problem switching between light attacks or heavy due to the excessive attack speed Volt offers and the massive corrosive damage output. I cannot confidently say this will hold up to level cap enemies, but you should have no problems killing enemies using this build up to the level 1000 to 2000 range instantly with the heavy attack. The light attacks have 4 slash procs on the stance as well, so there should be no problem there for scaling. Now let's take a look at the Volt build. It's a rank 0 combat discipline Arcane Avenger setup like I said. The kills you get with Agendus Altfire will feel this easily even with the light attacks too due to the 4 slash and is what keeps the heavy above 300% critical chance so that all you see are those beautiful reds. I'm still taking Prime Sure-Footed because the build is a bit risky as it's entirely reliant on aggro pulling from your decoy, which admittedly isn't perfect. Otherwise getting knocked down will probably get you killed. If your shield breaks, you can cast 2 Volt Shields, which will refill your maximum shields because of the 2 Augur mods on your epitaph. Or if you want a 0 animation cast, spam your speed 4 times. If you don't care about the guaranteed reds on Agendus and are fine with 261 critical chance, you can drop Arcane Avenger for Arcane Eruption. This also means you can change the aura to Briefer Spite so you have 230% energy to shield conversion instead. With that much conversion, casting speed twice or your Volt Shield once will instantly max out your shields again. If you want to build with better survivability, this is the one I would recommend. It reduces the amount of aggro that gets you even further of any that might have been misdirected from your decoy. We'll be getting a ton of health orbs due to our pet setup, and this synergizes well with Equilibrium. The extra orbs makes it easier to cast abilities and regen shields while also equipping Arcane Eruption to knock down enemies alongside proccing Energize. If you really want the Force Reds though, you'll have to give up the Eruption knockdown spam and easy shield gate regen. This is also why we're running Prime Flow for that massive energy bank, since the CC on this build is somewhat questionable, meaning you always want to have enough to cast Volt Shields or spam to reset Shield Gate, maxing out your strength to give Shock Trooper that much more power when buffing your Tenet Agendus corrosive shots helps as well. This is effectively a 229% Stormbringer. If you can fit Umbral Intensify on, go ahead, but I can't. Extra duration since we want our aggro puller decoy and Volt Shield to last as long as possible. They have the same base duration so it makes it really easy to track. On this build they have 63.5 seconds duration. This also means you can leave Volt Shields around everywhere, lots of free protection, and shock them will also stagger any melee units that try to get through them. One of the few times that shocking shields isn't a meme, am I right? You can even shock the shields you carry so that if the shield knockdown fails to trigger by running into them, it will still set off a stun. Decoy is going over your 4 because we don't have the range to make use of the stun on discharge today. I'm tying that in with the Savior Decoy Augment, like I said, which we're leaving at rank 1 since all ranking it does is increase the cast speed, which we don't need. Basically, if you die, it instantly switches your position with the decoy. It can only prevent death once every 60 seconds, but it is quite literally an extra life and puts you in a safe spot. Bonus points for having it well protected from enemies which are also being used to pull aggro to a place they can't reach. Efficiency is at the dumpster, but we have Arcane Energize and Equilibrium, so let's take a look at that pet synergy I talked about. Panzer Vulpaphyla. Now this is a stock build that you can use for basically anything on Steel Path. It's not necessarily for endurance, but it is a good starting point. Viral Quills will help you get 10 viral stacks where your primer fails to reach. Panzer Devolution keeps it invincible, and Martyr Symbiosis quite literally gives you another life again on top of Savior Decoy if you screw up. But quite possibly the most important ones are the two synth mods here. Synth Deconstruct lets you pick up health orbs even if your health is full, meaning you can still trigger Equilibrium for more energy that way. Synth Deconstruct will also give enemies tagged by your Panzer a 25% chance to drop health orbs when they're killed so long as it gets an assist. Because Viral Quill spreads so easily through the tile, you'll basically get a 25% chance of getting health orbs from basically any enemy you kill. There's your solution to the 45 efficiency problem, and stabilizing your Viral procs if you're relying on Epitaph. Of course, it has the rest of the standard kits such as Lifesteal, which is a joke with Agendus since it does millions of damage to the crowd, Radar so you can see spawns, and Fetch. Link mods are nice here and will work well for base steel path, but you drop both of these mods and Hunter Recovery if you're running Endurance since the cat will get one tapped regardless. And there you go, the Shield Bashing Savior Volt build, a gimmicky usage of the Savior Decoy Augment and some fun memes shield bashing through a Volt Shield. An invincible one, in fact. Honestly, I find it quite hilarious you're basically carrying an invincible shield while also killing things with a fat red crit shield at the same time. Reaper Spite is the safer option and gives you even more CC through Arcane Eruption procs instead of Arcane Avenger, but if you really want those red crits like I said, you're gonna have to play super aggressive in Combat Discipline rank 0 and a Arcane Avenger. There's my spin on the idea my community sent me in the last video. Is it a meme? I think it's halfway there. Not really super serious, but also not a full meme. It seems to work well enough though, and uses some things that have been sitting on the shelf for too long. Oh, and the shield bashing. So, Paladin Volt, I guess? If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or, better yet, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible. Like I've done with covering the Sisters of Parvils and Plague Star updates. Stick around if you will enjoy seeing interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first once more new war info drops. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.